I work full-time as an electrical engineer making a big machine that spins particles around really fast, but in my free time I've been working on this game. And today I want to show you some of the explosive new stuff I've added, like children, along with dynamic lighting, new music-based weapons, and a redstone-like logic system, and much more. But first, what even is my game about? The best way to describe it is if Terraria and Stardew Valley had a hideous goblin baby. It's called Isle Goblin, and you play as a little goblin whose island is being invaded by an adventuring party of nasty evil humans. Think Dungeons & Dragons Party meets British colonization. You witness them brutally attacking your friends and wake up to the wreckage of your town. You must explore the procedurally generated island to rescue your goblin pals and slay all the human bosses and devour their delicious flesh. You'll crawl through dungeons, dig through the vast underground layers for resources, and fight big spooky bosses. You'll then come home and build houses for each rescued goblin, befriend them, and build up your resources by farming, fishing, and raising livestock. You can craft new equipment, fuse things together, or apply magic war paint to prep for another excursion into the wild. The game also supports online multiplayer through Steam with up to 8 people. Now the first thing I want to talk about is the new lighting system, because I'm just so hyped about it. I should have been focused on more important stuff, but I was a dirty, nasty little goblin and got carried away. But here's how the game looks without it, and here's how it looks when it's enabled. You'll notice that as I move around this object, it almost looks like different sides of it light up, like it's 3D, even though it's only 2D. This was accomplished with the magic of normal maps, which I won't go into too much detail on, but they're really cool. I basically have to take all my art and color it based on which parts of the drawing face which directions, and then the game knows how to light it up based on where the light is. It also casts shadows all around it to make the player look like they're actually carrying a light. To do this, I used an old Unity asset that I bought many years ago called Smart Lighting 2D. I had to make a lot of modifications to the code to make it more performant for how I use it, but it now runs very smoothly. If your computer is an absolute potato though, I added a setting to turn all of it off, along with a few other things. Now unfortunately, dynamic shadows in 2D and 3D are expensive. The game lags like crazy if you have too many of these shadow casting lights, so I made it so that the player held lights are the only ones that do it. Overall, I think it looks pretty nice. But now on to the main task. The core systems of the game are done, as I've said in previous videos, but it really just needs more content and variety. I don't want it to feel like monotonous procedurally generated gunk, which means I have to add little handcrafted bits of fluff that feel special. I started by adding tons of new little encampments to the forest area. There's now a nice variety in the enemy camps you can find, along with other strange little places that hold unique secrets, like this odd goblin-shaped house, or this weird sword in the stone that the humans are investigating, and many more. I won't show it all for spoiler reasons. Once I felt satisfied with the forest stuff, I moved on to the underground, and this is when I thought it would be fun to add traps to spice things up. I wanted dart traps and I wanted explosives. You can't have a goblin game without bombs after all. This led me to thinking it was time to add some sort of redstone-like system where you could hook up all my traps and pressure plates for you unsuspecting fools to fall victim to my devious genius. So I made a cog-based logic system. But before I get into that, I've got a quick word from our wonderful sponsor for today's video, Southern New Hampshire University. As some of you know, I graduated back in the dark days with an electrical engineering degree. But after working on my game in my spare time, I don't really think I could ever be content just doing engineering. I really see game development in my future, and I know it's what I'm meant to do, or at the very least I enjoy it a lot. If I could turn back the clock, I think I'd go for a game development or computer science degree instead. And if you're looking to maybe get a career in game development, SNHU might be a good option for you. They're accredited, they're non-profit, so it won't cost you your entire life savings, and they're also online so you can get a degree without ever leaving your stinky goblin cave. When you graduate, you also have the SNHU squad nearby to help you with your job hunt, which is certainly the most stressful and frustrating part of the process. The courses are led by industry professionals with real-world experience, which is probably the most important part. Now, if this sounds interesting at all, you can scoot on over to snhu.edu/wattdesigns in the description below to see if you qualify for the program. You might also be eligible for financial aid or have transferable college credits that'll fast track your degree at SNHU, so just click the link to get started. Now back to the cogs. In essence, these work a lot like Terraria wires, but I decided to flavor them as cogs, since I like the idea of goblins getting their hands dirty with gears and machines rather than wires of some sort. I considered some sort of fungal network, but the whole point of the system is that the humans use it too, and I didn't want them to be clever enough to harness mushroom technology, so cogs it is. You can route these cogs from a pressure plate to a light, door, or explosive barrel, and it will toggle the light, toggle the door, or explode the barrel when you step on it. I also added a lever and a button that do the same thing. There are 4 types of cogs that go on different layers, so you can have overlapping paths like this for more complicated networks. To help with colorblind accessibility, I made them not only be different colors, but also different textures as well. Now, I was tempted to call it a day, but my electrical engineering degree was staring bullets at me and wouldn't let me do anything else until I added logic gates, so I did that. With this AND gate, for example, if all of the attached receivers receivers are turned on, the gate will activate. When any one of them turns off, it deactivates. You can see here that these other standard gates work properly as well. This OR gate, for example, will turn on if any of the receivers are activated by a switch. With these, the player should be able to make all sorts of complicated junk. I then added these timers that output pulses periodically so you can make more complicated circuits. My next big step is to make it so that these can be used to harvest crops automatically or transport items between containers or whatever, but that's a bit out of scope for now. I've kind of wasted enough time on this as is. For now, I just need traps. With this done, I added some little trap rooms. My favorite is this one that blows up. Speaking of explosions, I of course added bombs you can throw. And there are these explosive barrels that you can place, and if they take any fire damage, they'll blow up. I also added these bomb arrows that plant a field of flower. Oh, wait, no, they blow up too. Now next up, I added some new music-based weapons, because we currently only have bows, knives, and spears. I knew I wanted music weapons since I thought it would be funny for the goblin's terrible music playing to be so bad that it physically hurt the human ears. But the question was, how would they work? I had to enter prototyping mode. My first thought was that you could hold down the attack button and a stream of notes would flow out periodically at set angles, so you'd have to orient yourself with the enemy and use motion and positioning to your advantage. I mocked this up though, and while I loved the idea, it just wasn't very fun. It was way too limiting to not be able to aim. I just found myself constantly going for the bow instead, since it was 10 times faster just to shoot them. I then got a little more creative and made it so that you can aim, and this little fretboard appears. If you ignore the fretboard, you'll shoot these white notes and do a little bit of damage. But if you hover your mouse over the correct fret at the right time, you'll shoot these yellow notes that do more damage. The fretboard switches every few notes, so you have to be careful and know your instrument and when it's going to switch. The fretboard also twists as you move your mouse around. This means you have to focus on two things with your mouse: aim direction and fret distance. If you manage to do it successfully multiple times in a row, you get combo multipliers for more damage. The result is very challenging. It makes combat much more complex. You have to focus on three things at once as you're dodging and attacking and watching the fretboard, but I think it makes for, at the very least, an interesting weapon. To go along with this, I added a horn type of weapon as well. With these, you shoot notes in quick bursts before you need to breathe to refill your lungs. So mechanically, you can think of these as reflavored guns, but instead of cool guns, you get trumpets, and instead of magazines, you get, well, your lungs. Both of these new weapons come with new human gizmos. You may recall that gizmos are human artifacts you can find and have appraised by your friend, the goblin Gizmo. He's really stupid and will misinterpret the function of them, much like everyone's favorite seagull. And you'll end up with an item that you can keep in your armor pockets that will give you a new ability. I added a bunch of new music ones, like this strange stand thing that reflects all your notes backwards too. Why else would the humans put these in front of them while they play? Or this odd bulbous orb that's full of extra air so you can shoot more toots on your horn without breathing. Now before I talk about some of the new characters that I've added, I want to rapid fire some really small, quick things that I thought were worth mentioning. First, I added these cool little pedestals where you can display your items. It's kind of fun. By popular demand from my Patreon playtesters, I also added armor stands where you can display your incredible goblin armors. I also added signs so that you can leave wholesome goblin notes for your friends. Oh, look at this one. It says to like and subscribe. How strange is that? Speaking of which, if you do leave a comment, I do read every single one, even if I can't reply to them all. So make sure to leave some sort of message for me to read on my lunch break as I eat my chicken taco from Rubio's. You could also go wishlist the game or join the Discord server if you want it, but I then added tons of flowers that don't do anything. My plan is to eventually use them for dyes, but well, yeah, eventually. Next, one of the Patreon members pointed out that the door doesn't line up when you have something that's 2x2 in front of it, so naturally I had to make it so double doors could be a thing, because that really bothered me. I also made it so that you can rotate things. That's a pretty big one. I made it so pathfinding would work with big enemies too, so now we can have massive enemies like this big slime that splits into smaller slimes. And I also bought a Steam Deck, so naturally I made the game run on it. The game now works on Linux and Steam Deck, which is fun. You can now throw items to other players by pressing T, and you can rebind all your keys if you want. You can zoom in and out, that's pretty handy. The chests in the game also now have a quick deposit, loot all, and quick stack buttons, which are important quality of life features that I was missing before. This way you can quickly dump all your junk, grab everything, or quick stack to the existing stacks that are in the chest. There's also a quick stack to nearby chests button in the inventory now, so you can quickly dump your chest to goodies without opening 20 of your chests. Now the next big thing I added were a couple of new NPCs, the twins. I drew them in the intro cutscene, but I haven't added them yet. Their names are Twig and Bug. Twig is a nasty little brat with a proclivity for pyrotechnics, and he'll make explosives for you. Bug, on the other hand, is the only character in the game that won't speak, but he's very smart and creates all the cog technology to sell to you, like the logic gates and stuff we talked about earlier. Now on top of this, I've fixed all these bugs here and added tons of new content, but I don't want to spoil too much. So that's really it for my changes this time, but before I leave, as is tradition with these videos, it's time to show the current wishlist count for the game. They say wishlists are a pretty decent indication of how your game will do, and this article here shows some pretty generalized estimates of what to aim for. At the time of writing this, I'm at about 39,155 wishlists, but it may go up or down depending on the time I'm editing. I was originally aiming for about 10,000, so this is super huge and it's exciting to see the hype for the game. My new goal is 100,000 by release, but that might be a bit too ambitious. I'm really just trying to make something that that I think would be fun. So hopefully we'll end up with something genuinely good here, but we'll see. It's just me working on it. I do everything except the music, which I buy from my composer, RMD Compositions, so it takes a long time to get things done. I do not have a specific release date yet, but just know that I am grinding myself to the bone to get this thing done, and I'm going as fast as I can without burning myself out. This project is really way too ambitious for a part-time solo developer, but since I'm able to consistently hit about 40 to 45 hours of work on it a week, I think I've got a solid shot of getting a public demo done before May-ish, but we'll see. I really can't make any promises. And with that, thank you all for coming by, and I will see you all next time. Hello everyone! The time has come to shout out our eternally gracious patrons. I'd like to give a super special verbal shout out to our Goblin Deity patrons for December of 2024, namely Zachary Neese, Charfil, Krakenfall, Jackson Singleton, Joseph Scobby, Megan Palmer, Banana Glove, Reddit Slime on YouTube, Sierra Kovac, Enigma77, Snout, Chendrak, Player Unnamed, Colton Reagan, Gilbert Frank, Atomic Diamond, Alexander On, Echo the Developer, Jacob, I'm a Little Sus, Pamcake, Alzern, Liam Parcel, Setmari Radu Valentine, Dustin Punt, I'm Bad at Choosing Names, Jay Bowman, Cardog, Anthony Orsini, Isaiah Honor, Hank Pieters, Tom92, Gobsmacked, Connor Papania, Kirsten Zutendijk, QW Hippie, Azazel, Nicholas Utley, and Rafal Phoenix. You're all amazing and I appreciate all of the support.